Do you think that you'll see some businesses collapse?
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen some go already. From the surveys that we've done is that businesses were very much forecasting that they had sort of 3 to 6 months runway in terms of cash flow. Some of them have been able to access the government's business support scheme. So furlough has been one that has worked, I think, for pretty much everybody, apart from the freelancers. There are definitely challenges there. But the business interruption loans, the bounce back loans, there's a very small proportion of our businesses that have been able to access those. So there are still many that are struggling during this time. And we're hoping that the data that we have next week will help reopen conversations with the government around specific support for the fashion industry, for our creative businesses, because employing so many people in the British economy, we need to make sure where we can that we protect those jobs.
Well, lockdown is easing, and you launched London Fashion Week, which took a new form, digital only. Why did you make that decision, and do you think it's the right moment to do it?
Absolutely. So very early on is that we saw, obviously, is that we're very well connected with China, but also with our counterparts in Italy and France who are a few weeks ahead of us. And we knew that we wouldn't be able to put on a physical fashion week in June. And the questions, jury's still out for September around exactly what that will look like. But we did know that this is such a unique time, is that telling the stories of our businesses, hearing the stories of the creativity that's still happening and the collaboration via Zoom, sort of via getting product sent round by courier bikes to models to try on, to shoot in different ways, that it was such an opportunity to share sort of a snapshot of what's happening at this moment in time through a lens of creativity, but also is that what a fantastic time to stop thinking about the impact that this is maybe having on daily lives, but to really think about what the future might look like. So there was a lot of conversations around what our industry should look like, is both in terms of its environmental impact, but also in terms of its workforce, its diversity. And there were a lot of big issues that were tackled and ones that the industry definitely needs to tackle, that there needs to be action in. But from a Fashion Week perspective, it was just fantastic to see such brilliant content brought together. It was very quickly turned around. You can imagine a whole new platform within 8 weeks. I take my hat off to my team, is that they did a fantastic job. And doing that and then connecting with global audiences and telling their stories as well.
As you said, it was such a quick turnaround, 8 weeks. But for a lot of designers, of course, that have suffered factory closures, were they able to take part, or what was the pressure for them?
Well, it's that the brief was to them, if you have collections that you're able to show, you're able to shoot yourself, then let's get those on the platform. We connected with a new partner called Jaw, which is this technology that helps the buyers place orders. So that was able to be done virtually. We had more businesses than we thought, actually, that had product that were able to do that. So being able to connect those with the international buying market was incredibly important. And a lot of the follow-up that we'll be doing will be pushing those collections to the buyers over the next few weeks and really sharing with them what is available, what collections are available to buy. But equally is that just telling the stories. So we've said, sort of we had designer diaries, we had in conversations, podcasts, playlists. It sort of became this fantastic fashion content platform that there has never been before like this. And certainly there's things that we learned from it. And of course is that there's definitely things that will improve moving forward. But for the designers to be able to use their creativity through film, through creating sort of online magazines, those zines with collaborators in Paris, in New York, and seeing how that collaboration is still taking place during this time really demonstrated how connected our fashion industry is to global partners and creatives.
Caroline, what about for the designers that couldn't take part? Do you think it was fair to them, or the ones that couldn't show on that platform?
Well, it was open to everybody, and certainly if someone was able to make their content, is that we were very clear it didn't have to be the usual kind of polished standard you'd expect from a designer film, is that everybody's used to seeing things in slightly lo-fi at the moment. And we did see some of that. And I think is that for a lot of the designer businesses that maybe hadn't been able to access London Fashion Week before, is that they were able to access it on this platform. And we were also able to open our doors to the public. So inviting the consumers, it was free to anyone. There was no kind of fancy registration process or anything that needed to happen. It wasn't paid for. This is something that was open to everybody to share the stories and encourage them to discover our brilliant designer businesses. So from that point of view, absolutely. For those that will have collections later in the year, is that we have another fashion week in September, but we'll also be able to, now we have this great digital platform, is highlight businesses that maybe have collections ready in July, or a different segment, sort of maybe the jewellery segment of our industry, and do a focus on those potentially later in the summer. So very much we're thinking about how this content can develop and how we can use this platform that we've now created to support as many businesses as possible.
Do you think this is a seismic shift within the industry?
I'm hoping it's a seismic shift within the industry for the better, is that we always try and look in these times of challenge how you can shape things to come out in a stronger position. There is no doubt that this is going to have a devastating effect on so many businesses and individuals and livelihoods. But as we're looking at strengthening our businesses, de-risking our businesses for the future, let's also make sure, we've been talking about the idea of reset. Let's set ourselves up for the long term. Let's look at environmental impact. Let's look at the diversity in our workforces, so that we're an industry that we're incredibly proud of, not just from a creative and product perspective, but also in terms of its impact on society as well.
What will September London Fashion Week look like when the Burberrys and the big brands show?
Well, it's that we're having a lot of conversations with all of the brands and businesses at the moment, is that they were very interested to see what the businesses would be doing over the last few days at London Fashion Week, digital in its first form. I do believe there'll be a bit more of hybrid, is that the stores are open, that we'll see some kind of physical events. We may well see more traditional style shows or presentations that are sort of globally streamed. But there's so much innovation that can be done in terms of the way that product is shown. And we've seen some of that over the last few days, is that I'd encourage everyone to go and explore and sort of immerse yourselves in the creativity of the British designers and the British fashion community. I think we'll see a lot more of that. And I know from some of the conversations of businesses that were hoping to embrace technology for June, but just didn't have the time scale to do it, is that they will be doing that for September. So watch this space. I think it's going to be a very interesting round of fashion weeks. But certainly from a London perspective, we've got so many learnings over the last few days to share with businesses that we know that it'll be exciting, inspiring, and we hope as well it continues to be this platform for debate of how our industry changes, because very much our young businesses are the ones that are leading that, and of course we're very proud of that.
Are you hopeful that you could have spectators, a live audience, perhaps by September?
Well, it's that we watch with interest around whether the 2-metre rule reduces to a 1-metre rule, what that will look like. As I said, is that human interaction is something I think everybody is missing. And the part that I very much missed from our Digital Fashion Week was that sort of debate, the interaction, the sharing of knowledge and insight. And I think that knowledge transfer that comes of having groups of individuals together at business events like Fashion Weeks has been underestimated until now.